everybody, and welcome. I'm Visible Lady of Faith, and this is
her sidekick.
And we're here to talk about the Sunday school lesson entitled The Offerings of Cain and Abel for Sunday, June the 1st, 2025.
Yeah, this is one of these subjects that Cain and Abel, what did God like about one as opposed to the other?
This lesson takes place after Adam and Eve were evicted from the Garden of Eden. And why were they evicted from the Garden of Eden? Because they disobeyed God. Like you said, they did something that God told them not to do, which was
they ate from the tree of knowledge.
They ate from the tree of knowledge.
Yeah,
right.
not no apple, from the tree
right,
of
the tree
knowledge.
Of knowledge.
And where they was not aware of what was right and was wrong. They were not aware of it until they ate of the tree of knowledge, and they know the difference in right and wrong after they did that. Mm-hmm. That's revealed that. But also people emphasize that's an apple, which is not true. And then they became naked, which is but true. They didn't know
they didn't become naked. They were already naked. They became aware of.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's the right word to say. Yes.
The serpent convinced Eve to eat fruit from the tree of knowledge.
And see, that's an interesting point because that convince.
Yeah.
Because the little subtlety that he told him, "Oh, you're not going to die," but see, the serpent was talking about one thing and Eve was thinking another. Mm-hmm. She thought if she ate from the tree of knowledge, or this is the way I saw it, that she thought she was physically just stop living. No, she spiritually became dead. And
what you mean by that, spiritually dead?
Okay, now according to my understanding of the Garden of Eden, there was no such thing as death. Their body starts deteriorating. And as a matter of fact, it was really interesting. At that time, man was living like 800, 900 something years before the flood. Okay, so the environment was more pure at that time until they partake of that tree of knowledge.
Pollution free.
Oh, it was more than pollution free. I mean, it was so pure, that environment. In order to live for that long, something had to be different, there. So that's another discussion within itself.
Right. I thought about when I was reading about the snake.
Yeah.
It said the serpent. So, I was just wondering what form the serpent was in. Was it a snake or was it some other kind of creature, or even was it a person?
That's a good point. I never really thought about, did the serpent talk or what was going on here? Mm-hmm. But see, snake today, we got to think about what was reality like at that time versus what reality is like today. But the point is, the relationship between God and his creation is different over time. So that's why I'm saying is, when we think, we take this period of time and try to apply it there, and we can't.
Right.
It's a different situation.
Right. After Adam and Eve left the Garden of Eden, they had two sons, Cain and Abel. And Cain grew up to be a farmer, and Abel was something like a shepherd.
Yeah, right. Abel. Yes, that's true.
Yeah. So it came time to, I don't know how they knew this, but it came time for them to, I guess, grown up. This time, this scripture's taking place after they had grown up, I assume. So they were making an offering to God, and I believe this was their form of how they worshiped back then, by making offerings to God, making a sacrifice.
Yes.
Do you see it that way?
Well, see, it's different ways. Like today, how we commune with God is through Jesus Christ today, because Jesus Christ died on the cross. So now we are basically, I would say, more knowledgeable about who we are and what's going on in our environment. Mm-hmm. So we all can stand on our individual feet and be responsible for our own personal action. But still, the people at that time, they were well aware of themselves, but they didn't have a whole lot of things influencing them, because not today, we gain knowledge a lot faster because we got the internet. Because I can remember when I grew up with computers in '72, I had to still use the books, and I still did the old-fashioned way, reading and writing things down and going back and research and going in libraries, opening up a lot of books. So that activity, opening up the books and going through all that, that's slow as compared to Google, AI, and I'm constantly getting feedback constantly, this quick, as opposed to, yeah. And then going back at that time, at the time here, it's even slower because they didn't have the pencil, the papers, and the libraries, and that cumulative
They
knowledge.
weren't aware that they needed that at that time. They were just living their lives, just like we're living our lives the way things are now. They were just living their lives the way it was at that time.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
And let's just say put another 1,000 years if man exists again. They probably have something they attach it to the side of the head, come out of the baby, and just flush the knowledge inside.
Come out the baby.
You know
what are you talking about?
I'm saying when the baby comes out, instead of going to education, just like kind of Star Trek, they send you through this real fast course. They almost take something and attach it to your brain and just feed your brain with the knowledge, and you just start processing. Somebody. In other words, all I'm saying is people are going to try to come up with faster and faster way of educating.
Okay.
Okay.
So I was wondering.
And make one, because that's a very good point. Okay. The serpent convinced Eve to partake of the tree of knowledge. Okay.
After God had told them not to.
And I know in the Bible study.
The tree of knowledge.
Yeah, the Bible.
Yeah,
the Bible studies that I was in, we've talked about this many times, and I think it's a lot of surface. But how does that relate today? There's people convincing churches. Here's a short way to make money. Right. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm not sure why Abel's sacrifice was better than Cain's, or who considered it not good enough, or how they knew God was not pleased with Cain's offering. And this was when they made these offerings, like I said a few minutes ago, about in their worship to God. So I'm not sure about that.
I just remember this conversation in Bible studies, and I remember these conversations even with your dad when he was with us. I can only suggest certain things. And one thing is, I like what John brought up the other time. He said that the ground was cursed, and that's where Cain got his crops from, a cursed ground. And that could be part of it. Another part of it could have been, what was Cain's state of mind when he made the offering to God? That could be another. His mind, he was not giving God his best. That's another proposal, a possibility. That's another possibility. But see, the reason why I go with that possibility, because he murdered his brother.
Yeah.
And I want to make this point. You just don't think about, you're going to have some time before you actually go and kill somebody, because at that time, they didn't have guns, they didn't have bullets, so they had to do it with their bare hands or with an object.
Or an object, yeah.
Yeah. So there had to be a struggle, unless, and I don't know how his brother, was he asleep or what? He took a rock while he's sleeping.
No, remember reading that he took him to, let's say a camp. It's a camp here. He took him away from the camp, and that's when he unalived him.
But see, but you got to understand something. How? What did he do? Stab him in his back? Because, a stab, you're not going to die right away.
We don't know.
No.
We don't know.
My
point is, my point said that he did.
My point is, he didn't die like that. It had to be a struggle. Okay?
Yeah,
It took, in other words, I'm trying to establish, it took some time for him to kill his brother. And if you understand the time it took, then he also, while he was this anger that he had, he also could have stopped. He said, "This is wrong." That's my point.
Okay.
Because you just don't flip a switch. I'm a murderer now and flip it off. I'm not one now. So my point is, Cain, it was premeditated. He put some work and time into this. Is what I'm trying to establish.
Okay.
That's all he wanted. It's like it's like Cain came and gave his third-rated grain to God and expect him to pat him on the back and tell him good job.
Great.
But what people keep not getting is God knows what you're thinking. Mm-hmm. Now, we as human beings, how that relate to, because I know when my kids are doing the best. I know when my wife she's giving me the best, mm-hmm. And she's getting my attention, and when I say my best, whatever it so be. And in other words, you can kind of read the person and tell, mm-hmm. are they really happy doing this or not?
Like you said, read the room.
Yeah.
That's what you
yes.
You said, read the room. You can pick up vibes or whatever.
So, but God was asking Cain these interesting questions. He basically told him, he says, everything, if you did great, why are you so angry?
Anyway, do you guys think that Cain was selfish, what he did to his brother? Or do you think there could have been, however he was feeling, there could have been better ways to deal with his disappointment, frustration, anger, or jealousy, or however he was feeling? So how can we control our anger emotion and not let them get out of control?
I mean, Cain should have just came back and did better because God was having a conversation with him. Mm-hmm. Okay, he didn't like it this time, but there's other times. Mm-hmm. And this is the same thing in our lives. You fail this and everything. You may have to learn to do your best. Now, myself personally, when I play ball, I put out my best because I wanted to get out and be a starter. I wanted to get on the floor and get some time. Mm-hmm. It was basketball, football, or track. In track, you as an individual. And, I'm not interested in coming in 6th and 7th place. I'm trying to get at the top.
Right.
Now, that also, it should be in our, when we go to work. I mean, I know that, in my studies and research as far as people in their job, what is really interesting is that people hate their job, be looking forward to retiring and what have you. But I was blessed. I had a job that I look forward to going to work. Mm-hmm. And also I put out my best, even though when the company, and I didn't think they were treating me correctly, I still put out my best. Mm-hmm. And the reason why I put out my best, because it was benefiting myself. Mm-hmm. Because if I'm performing at a high performance in here, when it was time for me to leave the company, I'm going to perform high at the next company and the next company. Mm-hmm. And my salary just kept going up because I was a high performer.
Oh, I am wrapping this up.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. So I hope this discussion will help you to provoke thought about what we can learn from the relationship that Cain and Abel had, and Cain's actions toward his brother, probably over jealousy and envy and anger. So think about it, and we will see you next time.
There was one real quick thing, because you said the ground was cursed.
Right.
But I also found out in the next lesson it's going to talk about God's going to promise that He'll never curse the earth again. Mm-hmm. So that's